Welcome to You've Only Come to Hear United. I'm Rich Lewis, and today we're going to be answering 5 crucial questions off the back of that painful defeat to Spurs on Sunday. Now, first up, was that result expected? And I don't think it was. I think there's been times over the past, well, since Alex Ferguson left, in certain games where you know the writing's on the wall, and we're going to be expecting a difficult game, probably a really bad result, and you can see it coming before the game starts. But I think there was a little bit more optimism going into this one, even off the back of poor results against Twente and Crystal Palace. There was still a sense of Tottenham are going to go and they're going to come at us. We're probably going to try and go at them. I did see it becoming a bit of a basketball game, like the games we played towards the well, I was going to say towards the end of last season. Actually, no, throughout last season. A lot of back and forth, and I'd gone for a 2-2 before the game myself, but we did have a little bit of a threat. But compared to Tottenham's threat, they should have scored a lot more than the 3 that they did get in the end. I didn't see this coming at all, and I think a lot of the fan sentiment going into the game didn't indicate we were going to be on the end of it was a thrashing. It was a 3-0 thrashing, and yeah, I don't know how we got to this point. Don't get me wrong. We're more than capable of turning in an abysmal performance against a team. What have become a sort of traditional top 6 team. We've seen some hammerings over the last couple of years. It's not long. Obviously, this season we've already conceded 3 to Liverpool at home as well. So it's something we know we're capable of. But I did think we turned a corner beyond these, thrashing against the likes of Tottenham, who aren't a fantastic team at the moment, and they do play some good stuff, but they were out without arguably their best player in Son. He's maybe not having the greatest season so far this year, but still, he's an absolutely crucial player for Spurs. And with the team we had out there, that game was surely there for the taking. So, absolutely not. This wasn't an expected result. It wasn't one that I think people were prepared for, and it's probably one of the reasons why it's hurt all the more as well. Now, this was pretty inconsequential when it happened, but the second question we're going to answer is, should Bruno have been sent off? The general consensus seems to have been no. But looking at some of the results, some of the red cards that I've seen this season so far, it doesn't surprise me. I think the threshold for what is a red card has been lowered. I think some of the instances where we've seen people getting sent off for kicking the ball away at times hasn't helped, because you start going, if that's a second yellow card, then if something, how high Bruno's foot sort of comes, you're kind of going, okay, I can understand why the referee sent him off. I think for me, it's not really a red, but once he's lunged in and he's raised his foot sort of in that mid-air action, it's one of those where the referee books him, that's not going to be overturned and made a red card. If he sends him off, it's not going to be downgraded to. VAR's not going to interfere on that, whatever the referee does. So I did think it was a harsh one for me, and he didn't deserve to go. But at the same time, it was also it summed up nicely, not nicely, but it kind of summed up the circumstances around Bruno Fernandes and Manchester United over the past couple of games, where Bruno's performances have been below par. Erik ten Hag refuses to drop him, and it almost felt like at some point there is gonna be a sort of end point to this. There's gonna be something that's gonna happen, which is gonna. I mean, for me, it was probably just gonna be nothing more than Bruno putting an absolute stinker in a big game and being culpable for the result, and it really coming to the forefront that he needs a rest. He needs to be taken out of the team. Didn't necessarily think it'd end in a red card. I think it was said that it was his first red card for Manchester United. And there was a desperation in that lunge. There was a frustration in there. Even if it had just been a yellow card, it would have really just shown that he was, getting to a point where that frustration about his own performances and the team performances was going to bubble over. And as we talked about after the Twente game and just reflecting on that, I'd said at the time, does Erik ten Hag have the balls to drop Bruno Fernandes? And I said he won't, but he needs to. And I think that showed in that first half. He wasn't at the races. He wasn't in the game. He wasn't the only one. So this isn't about coming after Bruno at all. I mean, I totally understand why he obviously tried to, bring the player down at the time to stop an attack. It was intended to be a trick, but he shouldn't have been out there in the first place. I'm not going to blame someone for something that happens in a match when I really don't think they should have been selected. We've seen it with Marcus Rashford at times where he's got some absolutely abysmal stick, and I'm thinking, yeah, but he's not picking himself here. And it's the same goes for a lot of our players. Harry Maguire, when Harry Maguire was getting some of his worst stick, it was like Harry Maguire's not picking himself to be in the team at the moment. Of course, they want to play, but it falls on the manager to take somebody out of the firing line if they're not doing well or not performing. There's somebody else in the squad who can perform better. So, yeah, should he have been sent off? Probably not, but it was inconsequential in the end. We had an abysmal first half, and it wasn't something that was really going to change the course of the game. Even if, and let's just say I'm wrong, and let's just say yes, it would have changed the course of the game. What's the excuse for that first 45 minutes? If you come back and we come out the second half and won that game 2-1, there was stuff that happened in that first half which we've seen happen before, and I would have been frustrated almost if we turned that game on its head, because it would have been papering over the cracks. We need to see us put something together from beginning to end. We'd seen flashes of it this season. We'd seen some really decent performances, or at least parts of games where we performed quite well, and you thought it was building towards something. And somehow we've managed to reverse that, and we've almost stole, defeat from the jaws of victory, where we've been heading in the right direction. Things were looking positive, and we found a way to regress, just as we seem to be moving in the right direction in some ways. And now he's in the third season at Manchester United. Should that really be happening? But probably getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, because the next question that we're going to be answering is, who is to blame for the result? And I think first and foremost it's the manager. Just because so much of the game looked wrong, the way we approached the game looked wrong. One thing I've heard, from a couple of different sort of pundits and different streamers, and yeah, there's a feeling that we played right into Spurs' hands. They quite wanted this game to be quite back and forth, and they lured us into playing it in a way that suited them, and it hurt us badly. We played the way they wanted us to, and I think there's some truth in that. I can totally see that. And if that is the case, then the manager's got to be ready and prepared for that. Like, don't fall into those traps. Don't expose yourselves to, giving Spurs opportunities that we don't need to give away. I think there was just so much wrong about that performance that, even though there were a lot of poor individual mistakes, how we ended up in a position that we went out and played like that is just bizarre. It really is. That being said, I think a lot of blame does light the manager's door, but that's kind of from the bigger picture in terms of the game itself. The first goal, as has been said repeatedly by people, how Van der Ven was allowed to run from the back to the front as easily as he did, it was crazy. I think he definitely took Ugarte, De Ligt and Mazraoui by surprise. I think a lot of them probably thought he's not going to just keep going, is he? I think all of them had opportunities to take him out. Then you've got Dalot not marking Brennan Johnson at the back post. He doesn't keep following his runner, which was just bizarre. I've seen the replay a few times, and I just can't understand why Dalot seems to stop. It's almost as if Dalot has decided at some point that he's not getting in there. There's nothing to worry about here. Brennan Johnson's never getting to that ball. And obviously he does, and it's 1-0. And you look at the replay and how far back Dalot is, and it's just, I don't know what he's doing there. And then the second goal, there was a touch of fortune about the way it fell to Kulusevski. I'm not too phased about that. I felt like it was one of those things. Morale was already really low at that point too, coming into the second half. Yes, it all goes out the window when you concede so soon after half time, when you're only 1-0 down despite playing that badly. But there was a sense of inevitability about it. But the third goal was particularly infuriating, because that shouldn't happen at all. I mean, it doesn't matter if you've only got 10 men on the pitch at this point. Bruno Fernandes is not going to be the difference maker in the penalty box situation like that. Just goals from corners in general. You can see the goal from a header from a set piece, and that's never gonna reflect well on you at all. And I don't think there's ever a good reason for that unless there's been a foul that's been missed. You know, that shouldn't be happening. 10 men, 9 men, whatever. That's no. So there was just some generally poor defending out there, poor individual performances. You can probably lay the blame across the board, and it's been said again quite widely, and I totally agree. Andre Onana's the only one who comes out of that with some credit. I thought he made some really good saves. It was a positive performance, really encouraging coming off his line how he did. But yeah, when again, look at that. Best player of the game, Andre Onana, a home game against Tottenham, and our best player was probably the goalkeeper, and we still lost 3-0. That says it all, really. And it begs the question, our next question, well, what happens next? What needs to happen next? Important to distinguish here between the next two questions, because this question is what needs to happen next, and what needs to happen is he needs to go. It's time. It really is, because we're in a position now where we've got 2 games the rest of this week, and if you bring in a fresh face, you can attack that now. You can attack the future as of this moment. You can go and attack that Porto game with some positivity, better chance of getting a result against Villa, and you can build momentum too. I think keeping him there any longer than he is I can't see any positives. I can't, because it's going to take, I don't know how many wins he'd have to bank to change the sentiment around him, because I think we've well and truly got the fear now. The fear that even if we do put together 1, 2, 3, 4 wins, the slump is just around the corner, because we keep finding a way to have setbacks, and it's got to stop. It really has sometime soon. And Tenhag has had a lot of opportunities to stop the rot at different points. There was a lot of encouragement, as I said before, from the start of this season, and yet we still find ourselves here again. And I think myself, like many other fans, are just tired of going through this game after game after game. It'd be nice just to analyse a game and look at the game and look at chances or the fine margins which dictated the game, who was particularly off the boil, and who was responsible maybe for us not getting a particular result, or just who played well, and looking at positives and looking towards the future. And we just can't do that at the moment. As soon as you think as soon as you think you can, you're completely undermined by the next performance. You want to be able to build on something, and I love to be able to come on here and go, so and so had a good performance, and then next week can say the same thing, and it's like, oh, now they've got like 4 in 4 games. It looks like we've really got a player here, and we're heading in the right direction. And then even if you have a defeat, you could still see the patterns of play. You could still see the positive things. And there had been touches of that at the start of the season. There's bits of positive play. One thing that hasn't been is goals. And again, we've zipped nothing at Old Trafford. We've lost 3-0 at Old Trafford to Tottenham, 3-0 at Old Trafford to Liverpool. The nil part is massively concerning, because we've got players who'll score goals. We haven't got a goal scorer of the ilk of a Kane or a Salah at Liverpool, or obviously a Haaland. Yeah, we haven't got anyone of that ilk, but we've got. You look at other teams and the goals they're managing to score. We've just seen Dwight McNeil score 2 for Everton in their win at the weekend, and you're looking at Garnacho and Rashford and Ahmad, Bruno. There's no reason we should be. It doesn't matter who the opposition is to go. Those 2 games at Old Trafford to not have scored. Chucking a goalless draw against Crystal Palace in there too. I think we're one of the lowest scorers in the league, if not the lowest. I'm not too sure if we're the lowest or not, but it's not too good. And we've been low scorers in his 2 full seasons here as well. It's just not good enough. And how long do you let this continue? Then that leads on to what will happen next. And the truth is, even though he should go, he won't. Everything that's come out in the news today suggests that he will be staying for at least the Porto game, the Villa game. And I can't see us getting a win in either of those. I think Porto probably a draw. I think it wouldn't, if we did get like sort of a 2-1 or a marginal win maybe, but the goals aren't too forthcoming at the moment. But again, if we beat Porto, then we've got Aston Villa. I absolutely can't see us getting a win against Villa at the moment. I think it wouldn't surprise me a draw. We tend to do quite well at Villa Park and have done over the years. But does that go out the window with the way things are at the moment? Maybe it does. Maybe there's nothing there to really, got no good reason to think why we're going to get a good result. And even if we do, if we beat Porto and we beat Villa, and even if we play great football, I don't think there's any fans out there who are suddenly going to think, oh, we're all right now. That's fine. We did the right thing. We didn't have a knee-jerk reaction. We've won these 2 games. We're back on the up and up. Because for me, that trust in the manager, that confidence in the manager has been completely and utterly destroyed. I'm just waiting then for the next defeat. And I remember being here with Mourinho and Ollie and Van Gaal. When performances aren't good, there's an expectation there now, which wasn't there before the game. That's why we asked the first question: was this expected? That's why it was an important question, because it wasn't before this game. But the level of expectation now will have completely changed, and an expectation will be at certain moments going into certain games after what happened against Tottenham that we will lose again, and that doesn't matter. And that's not going to be changed by victories over Porto and Villa. After the international break, we've got West Ham away, Chelsea at home in there quite soon afterwards too. They're games which you look at on the face of it and go, we'll struggle in those games. I'm pretty sure that's going to, filter from the top down, from the fans down to the players, and the players they're gonna feel that weight of expectation, and I can only see a change in the dugout being the sort of the thing that's going to make things better. What concerns me is that if the reports are true about it costing, I think it was something like 17.5 million to sack Erik tenhag at this point in the season. If there are PSR concerns, which there appear to be, we saw that over the summer, would Ineos keep him in the role purely because they can't, actually afford to get rid of him from a financial perspective? And then the decision to keep him over the summer is going to get called into question massively. I think the big questions will be asked of them there, because they extended the contract for a year. They did look at a number of other managers before they settled on Erik tenhag, and it's not looking like a great decision at the moment. I'll be honest, I was very much on the fence. Last season, Andy Mitten wrote a great article in The Athletic where he separated himself between Andy and Andrew, and he talked about one personality and alter ego was for Erik tenhag and one against, because he just basically said he kept going back and forth. And I think that's where I was myself, and I think a lot of fans were too. One moment go, no, I'll give him the time because he's going to be great. The next one, I can't see this happening. And I haven't been like that with any of the other managers when they were having difficult spells. I kind of got a good sense of, okay, I want Mourinho gone before we went. I just thought he was stinking the place out. Van Gaal, the football was so dull. It was kind of like, my thing with Van Gaal was, you give him that job for, if he was a younger man and he was going to be there for like 5 or 6 years, I think he would have been successful. I think those processes would have got quicker. What was quite slow and laborious between players, the sideways passing, I think there would have been triangles and movements which generally over time would have sped up. You could see what he was trying to do. It was just like we were playing in slow motion sometimes, and it was incredibly dull. Ollie just fell apart in the 3rd season, and the whole situation seemed to have gone out of control. It went from being quite good under him to suddenly being quite like, what is going on with this team? Whereas Ten Hag, it was a case of backwards and forwards between, that looks really good, that's a good run of results, and then all of a sudden it was like, what's going on there? We look really sort of out of it, and you could see promise, and then there was no promise. So when it came to the summer, I was worried that the FA Cup final was tainting too many people's perspectives, and you shouldn't make decisions based on that. And it was a worry actually when we gave Ollie the job full time, because he ended the season so well, and you knew that the momentum he'd built probably meant he was going to get offered the job full time. And while I wasn't massively against it, there've been a lot of voices when he took the role of, right, this gives us the time to look for a proper manager, someone who's got the experience and the nous to manage Manchester United. And then obviously, because he did so well, he was given the role full time, and then the question gets fired, it rears its head again once the inevitable happens and things don't go so great, and he gets a sack, and it's like, well, should he be given the job at all? And I think that's where we're getting with Ten Hag now. He was given that extension over the summer, and people are looking at Ineos and going, was that the smartest thing to do? I think it probably would have been wiser to have a clean break. I understand them keeping him on, I do, and I wasn't massively against it in the end, especially if it would have meant someone like Gareth Southgate came in, which I haven't met any United fans yet who want him in. It's different whether you get behind him or not. That's a different question. But I haven't met any who want him here. For England, I don't watch England really as much as I did a long time ago, and it's partly because the football I find quite neither here nor there. Really, he's done a fantastic. He did a fantastic job with us before Lee Carsley came in. Been so successful, and maybe he's been a bit of a victim of his own success at that level to some degree. But the actual football itself, I hadn't found massively enjoyable. Anyway, that's it for today. We will be back tomorrow, if not tomorrow, the day after, looking over the weekend's Premier League action and trying to just, not think about Manchester United for 5 minutes, which is almost impossible to do with the coverage at the moment. But it doesn't look like the manager is going anywhere just yet. So I was going to say fingers crossed for a positive result against Porto, but what does that mean at the moment? It doesn't mean a lot. I'm sure I'll be back, reflect on the Porto game one way or another after a defeat or a victory or a draw, and it won't really have changed much, to be honest. The Villa game will give us a bigger indicator of what's going to happen over the international break. I think the board are making the wrong choice by sticking with him at the moment, but I'll be happy to prove wrong. If the end of this season, we end this season, we're really successful and Erik ten Hag's still here, then I'm more than happy to be wrong about the situation at the moment.